Stop trying so hard. In fact, your desperate obsession with getting it right is the very thing sabotaging your success. We are raised in a culture that worships meticulous control. We are told to focus, to be cautious, and to care deeply about every outcome. But there is a psychological chokehold that tightens the more you care. It is known as the Wallenda Effect. It dictates a cruel paradox. The moment you shift your focus from the action to the consequence, you lose the very mastery you've spent years building. You aren't failing because you aren't prepared. You are failing because you have become a spectator of your own performance. Mark stood outside the boardroom door, the cold sweat on his palms soaking through the proposal he had spent 3 months preparing. This was his final chance. One more slip, and he would be a ghost in the corporate machine. No job, no mortgage, no future. He tried to memorize every line of his speech, but his brain felt like a frozen screen. Mark wasn't always this paralyzed. Years ago, he was a natural. Could code for 20 hours straight or lead a team through a crisis without blinking. But then came the mistake. A single misplaced digit that cost the firm millions. His boss's voice became a permanent recording in his head. You could not afford another error. Since then, Mark had stopped doing and started watching. He monitored the way his fingers moved on the keys, analyzed the pitch of his voice in every meeting. He was like a driver so obsessed with the mechanics of the engine that he forgot how to look at the road. He was a master who had become his own internal warden, micromanaging a machine that used to run on instinct. Nauseous and trembling, Mark retreated to the basement cafeteria. Behind the counter stood Sal. Sal was 70 years old, working the peak lunch rush. Orders were screaming off the ticket machine. Pans were hissing and knives were blurring. Sal was a whirlwind, flipping omelets, shouting orders, and laughing with a regular, all without ever looking at his hands. He was in a state of absolute, effortless grace. Mark watched him, mesmerized. Sal noticed the suit with the trembling hands. He didn't offer a pep talk. Instead, Sal grabbed a raw egg and tossed it high into the air toward Mark. Catch, he barked. Instinctively, Mark's hand shot out. He caught the egg perfectly. Soft landing, no crack. See? Sal grunted, turning back to a searing steak. You didn't think, you just caught it. Sal then handed Mark a thin paper cup filled to the absolute brim with scorching coffee. Now, walk across this kitchen to the back door. If you spill a drop, I'm charging you for the dry cleaning. Mark froze. He locked his eyes on the surface of the black liquid. He moved like a robot, his muscles screaming with tension. The more he willed his arm to be still, the more the coffee rebelled, splashing over the rim. He failed before he took 5 steps. Sal refilled the cup. Stop watching the cup, kid. The cup knows where it's going. Look at the exit sign. That's your world. Everything else is just noise. Mark hesitated, then lifted his chin. He locked his gaze on the distant red exit light. He stopped monitoring his arm, stopped checking the brim. He moved. His body, freed from the prison of his mind, balanced itself. He reached the door with a dry hand. This shift is the essence of the Wallenda Effect. It is named after the legendary Karl Wallenda, who fell to his death not because he lacked skill, but because for the first time he was focused on not falling instead of the walk itself. Neuroscience reveals that mastery lives in the Basal Ganglia, the brain's automation center. This is where your flow resides. It is fast, intuitive, and brilliant. But when pressure hits, our prefrontal cortex, the logical mind, tries to seize control. It's called explicit monitoring. It, Sakudi eta, within the brain. Your logical mind tries to micromanage a process that is too fast for logic to handle. The result is choking. You aren't suffering from a lack of talent. You are suffering from internal interference. You have allowed the monitor to kidnap the master. Mark pushed open the boardroom doors. The dread was there, but so was the memory of the exit sign. He sat down, opened his laptop, and for a second, the old urge to watch himself speak rose up. He closed his eyes, visualized the red light in the basement, and whispered one word: flow. He decided that his job wasn't to be perfect, but to reach the end of the story. He stopped being a spectator. The words didn't come from his memory. They came from his bones. He didn't just win the contract, he won himself back. The Wallenda Effect teaches us that life is not a defensive struggle to avoid mistakes. When you stare into the abyss at your feet, the abyss eventually swallows you. When you stare at the horizon, the path beneath you becomes clear. Fire the warden inside your head. Trust the instinct that has practiced 10,000 times while you weren't looking. The secret to mastery is not more control. It is the courage to let go. Stop looking at the water. The horizon is waiting.